So, Michael Testa, he's from Cumberland County. He's the chairman of the Cumberland County Regular Republican Organization. He's the state senator of the legislative district, which is the first one. It's Cape May, half of Cumberland, a little more than Cumberland. And has been involved in everything you can possibly imagine in South Jersey. It's from Vineland, third generation, I think, with regards to the family. You need somebody that understands South Jersey and understands the battles that we're dealing with. And he's going to talk about things that go our way, sometimes they don't go our way, and just his perspective on where we can go forward. So with that, I'll give the floor to Senator.
So Brian is now hired to do all of my introductions, no matter where I ever speak. So thank you so much, Brian. And I have to give a special shout out to Seth Grossman. I first met Seth back in 2009. It was either late 2008 or early 2009 when he was really working with Steve Lonigan. I don't know if Seth remembers that. You remember that, Seth, when we first met?
How can I forget it?
You were with Judge Parecka, if I remember correctly, when we first met. So Seth has been doing this a really long time, and he's passing the baton to a very young, intelligent, aggressive conservative by the name of Brian Fitzherbert, who, again, I can't thank enough for that wonderful introduction. But you take a look around at the people in this room, and this is what America is all about. People used to say to me, Testa, you always go to these craft breweries when you have meetings there. And I said, America was founded in alehouses by people who were really angry. Well, where are we right now? We happen to be at an alehouse, and I'm willing to bet, even though we're all friends and family in this room and probably agree on 98+% of the issues, there's an undercurrent of anger as to where the state of New Jersey and where this country is going. I'm willing to bet that out of most people, because it isn't the America that we grew up in. It's not the America that we were promised by our founders. And I take a look at the tenets or the issues of liberty and prosperity, and how could anyone who actually believes in this wonderful experiment that is called the United States of America, how could anyone disagree with those 11 points? And then I look at the hashtag. I got to tell you, Seth, you've been stepping up your game. But where it says, do more than vote. Because how many times do you hear people say, I vote straight Republican every election? And by the way, we know this from the apps that we use when we knock on doors. We shake hands and knock on the doors of a lot of liars. Because we find out that they're either 1 for 4 voters, which means they vote in presidential elections, or they vote in 2 for 4, so maybe presidential and gubernatorial elections, but they're certainly not voting in legislative elections like Assemblyman Knitra and Senator Testa's elections. And that becomes problematic because they have to do more than vote. They have to come to meetings like this. So 3 main points I wanted to touch upon in my discussion today. And I want to open the floor because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm still learning about what happens under the Gold Dome and in the halls of Trenton. But Seth pointed out something earlier, and it was sort of an undertone that the Republican Party in the state of New Jersey is fractured. Seth, you're 100% correct. And that's got to stop. I call it the circular firing squad. Republicans are obsessed with finding the perfect candidate, with finding the perfect assemblyman, with finding the perfect platform. Now, President Ronald Reagan is more than likely my #1 president in my lifetime. He had an 80% rule, that if you agree with someone 80% of the time, they're your ally and not your enemy. Far too often, I see other Republicans who are trying to nitpick and find ways that they disagree with me or that they disagree with Assemblyman Knitra. Instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, this guy is fighting for me on 95% of the issues that I agree with. They focus obsessively on the 5%. And I can tell you, I've been in the legislature for 6 years, and I've had much more opposition from individuals with R's next to their name than I have from D's. Now listen, that doesn't mean that they won't shut us down, and I'm going to touch upon a video that I want everyone to go look at, and he's gotten a lot of great publicity already. Assemblyman Knitra was shut down by his chairman the other day, and I'm going to talk about that. And it's ridiculous. Seth, you talked about liberty. Liberty comes with a cost, and it's an investment. Because one of the things that you have to be is brave. And far too many people will say, I'm a Republican. I believe what President Trump is doing with his policies, but I don't tell my friends. You know what? They're just as bad as the enemy, if not worse. Because every now and again, I take a look around and I say, gee, who has my back? And people will tell me they have my back, or Assemblyman Knitra's back, or the sheriff's back. They must have our way backs, right, Sheriff? As I like to say, geez, you must have my way back because you're way back there. And that's a real problem that we have in the Republican Party. That far too many people have succumbed to the chilling effect of the radical left. You take a look around and the radical left is trying to hush our voices. They don't believe in the First Amendment. And again, these are basic tenets that they're not crafted under gold domes. They were given to us by our Creator, right? These are inalienable rights, that we have the right to assemble, what we're doing here. We have the right to free speech, what we're doing here. No lawyer, no legislator, nobody can give you that. It's inalienable. That's something we really need to think about. And one of the areas we're seeing some of the most pushback is on point number 1 right there, mass deportations. And I was just showing Brian, just today, all these folks now that are these bleeding hearts who are talking about ICE are constantly in my legislative district in Bridgeton. You better believe they are. There's some really bad people who have already been convicted of crimes. These aren't innocent individuals who are just taking their children to school, which is constantly what you hear from the radical left. These people have been arrested and been oftentimes convicted of heinous crimes, whether they're drug related. And this is the future. I see little Luke over there on his mom's shoulder. This is why we assemble. This is why we take time out of our schedules and say, you know what? We're going to fight for New Jersey. Seth's been doing this at least since 2003, and I'm willing to bet long before that, since he formed this organization. But the fact of the matter is we're fighting for our grandchildren, and we're fighting for New Jersey and America, and something that we really believe in. But you take a look around in the city of Bridgeton that they're saying is so revitalized, by the way. This was an article in NJ.com today. Listen, I represent Bridgeton. I love it there. There's some great things there. It's not revitalized at all. Many would say it's one of the worst cities in the United States of America by every metric. And yet they're saying these innocent people are being taken off the streets. I showed Brian 2 pages of people who were convicted of horrific crimes that were taken off the street. So, but the radical left wants to get in the sheriff's face, in my face, and they always have this blue or pink hair, by the way, and they like to get really close to your face with their finger in your face and yelling at you. And they want to tell you that you're a monster. And they want to call you a Nazi. That's another name, right, Seth, that they use a lot? And I take particular offense to that because my grandparents met in a Nazi concentration camp. I'm half Italian, half Jewish. And that one I take great offense to. And I say, hey, wait a minute. What did you just call me? And they line the outward sidewalks of the State House, don't they, Paul?
Yeah, they do.
And you might want to, we don't even have a coffee shop anymore, by the way, in Trenton. But back when I first started, you could go walk and get a coffee. And on your way back in, they'd be pointing their fingers at your face, talking about reproductive freedoms. You know what's funny? I asked a question one time about Planned Parenthood. And I said, how many people leave Planned Parenthood as parents? I can tell you it's less than 6%. So they're doing a pretty piss poor job of planning people's parenthoods. Think about that. So thank you for putting up the fight, this table right here, because it's a really important fight that we have to really talk about. But again, they try to paint us as the crazies. You take a look at all of these green energy subsidies, right? People talked about offshore wind for a while and what a great boon it was going to be. Well, you know what? I can guarantee you, everyone in my age group, I'll be 50 in May, their dream was to be able to own a shore home. Maybe not at Point Pleasant Beach, though, right? That's where Assemblyman Knitra was the mayor, by the way. So it's getting a little dig in him there. But we all wanted a shore home, whether it's on the bay or on the beach. And you want to be as close to the bay or as the beach as possible, right? If you're in one of the shore towns. The last thing we wanted to see is the industrialization of our oceans. The last thing we wanted to see is what I call a dystopian red light district in the Vista that looked like RoboCop or Blade Runner. I'm showing my age as to which movies I'm referencing, but two fantastic movies, by the way, that I don't want our shore to look like. So why do we fight? In 2020, I was President Trump's co-chair, but I also had the opportunity to be a delegate in 2016, and the RNC rulebook platform was about 86 pages. I have to tell you this, if that's not the dumbest thing ever, we should have 10, maybe even 5 reasons that say, why are you a Republican? Why? What do you believe in? I don't know, maybe you believe in liberty, maybe you believe in prosperity, maybe you believe in strong borders, because a nation without a border isn't a nation, right? Maybe you believe in maybe actually curbing taxes. Fathom that. And I can tell you, since Governor Christie, our budget was $34 billion under Governor Christie. It's $59 billion right now. In 8 years, it went from $34 to $59 billion. If anybody thinks that's sustainable, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you today. We have a $4 billion structural deficit. So I'm blessed to sit on probably 2 of the 3 most important committees in the state Senate, the Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee and the Judiciary Committee. I get to see all the nooks and crannies. And we have another warrior that just walked in, Jesse Kurtz from Atlantic City. Fantastic guy. But Seth, you talked about the future of the Republican Party and young people. Well, I'm the youngest in the Republican Senate caucus, and I'm going to be 50. It's not that young. I have decent genetics and kept all my hair so far. So I might look a little bit younger than my age actually shows. But think of how old our founders were. What was the average age, Seth, of our founders?
34.
You got it, Brian. 34. The average age was 34 years old of our founders of this great nation. Now, granted, we're living a lot longer than then, and we mature at maybe a later age. But think about it. It's probably right in the pocket of where Assemblyman Knitra is. So where do we go from here? In 2020, I can tell you I was in a meeting with the Trump administration, and Jared Kushner walked in. This was for the re-election campaign, pre-COVID, by the way, because COVID really screwed 2020 up, didn't it?
Yep.
And Jared Kushner just walked in and was meeting us, and we were talking about what the potential platform was going to be for 2020. And he goes, I think that you should be able to tell people why you're a Republican, and it all should fit on about the size of a library card. I looked at him, I said, well, I'm listening. And he said, because if you're in line at the grocery store and someone says to you, hey, Sheriff, why are you a Republican? But you should be able to pull out a card and tell them why you are a Republican. And I'm thinking, Seth, that something like this, maybe it gets condensed a little bit, could be put on a card. Why are you a member of Liberty and Prosperity? Why do you believe in the Republican Party? And you can tell people exactly why you are. Because right now, we're not controlling the narrative as a Republican Party nationally, and we're certainly not controlling it in the state of New Jersey. Otherwise, we wouldn't have just faced this shellacking. Now, I want to look through the windshield and not the rearview mirror, but if we don't look in the rearview mirror a little bit, we're going to be doomed to make the same exact mistakes over and over again. And that's the very definition of insanity, which I'm not willing to have. And I can tell you that myself, Antoine McClellan, and Eric Simonson flipped the first legislative district in 2019. We flipped Cumberland County, which had been Democrat for 50 years. Thank you. And I haven't had any major party leaders ask me what I did. And I'm scratching my head saying, not that I think me, Eric, and Antoine are that important, but maybe you ought to be coming to us for a little bit of a formula. Maybe we should be at the table talking about what we did and what we think works and what hasn't worked. Because I've been elected 3 times. Eric and Antoine have been elected 4 times. Maybe we actually learned some things along the way. But I think the Republican Party actually has a bright future if we start getting along and start recognizing when some of our teammates are doing really well. Now, I'm a big sports fan, and if you ever watched The Last Dance about the Chicago Bulls, it turns out that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen really didn't like each other at all. But you know what? You never saw Scottie Pippen try to block Michael Jordan's shot.
Yeah.
Not once. So when I see something like Assemblyman Knitra get 8,000 likes or something like that on a video, you know what I do? I call him and say, hey, great job. And that's exactly what I did. I've had one of mine about during the COVID era, about the mandatory vaccination stuff, went viral nationally. I didn't get a call from one elected official. You know what I was called? I was called kooky. But on my birthday last year, Bobby Kennedy called me. Right?
That's good.
But those are the kinds of things, again, we have to support each other. Otherwise, you think you're on an island. And I think so many times we leave strong Republicans who are out front on that island. Again, looking around this room, Sheriff, I know what little support you got from other Republicans who said you couldn't do it. Well, you know what? They call him Sheriff now. Apparently he could do it because he did it. 2019, there was a poll that came out 11 days before my election that said I was 14 points down. 11 days before the election. I won by 7. Well, guess what? We did it. We were told we absolutely could not do it. And I think that we're so beaten down in this state, Seth, as Republicans, that we sort of believe that it can't be done. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of defeat, a self-fulfilling prophecy of losing. So where do we go from here? Again, uniting the party is more difficult than I ever thought it could be. The Assembly, unfortunately, has lost 11 seats in the last 2 election cycles. 11 seats. The first 2 seats that were gained in a long time were Assemblyman McClellan and Assemblyman Simonson. And then what happened? That was 2019, 2021, we had a great year, but 2023 and 2025, we did not have good years as Republicans in the state. And I'm going to get back to that card as to what unites us. Like right now, if you were to ask a New Jersey Republican to define what it means to be a New Jersey Republican, I'd be willing to bet if you went to 40 different legislative districts, you'd have 40 different answers.
Absolutely.
That's a massive problem because we don't have an identity. And look, there are things that you have to do differently in Warren and Sussex County than you have to be able to do in Camden County. There is no doubt in my mind. However, there has to be some basic tenets that we never give up. And in reading these, Seth, pretty much for the first time when I got here, those 11 points, I don't think any Republican worth their salt can disagree with any of that. They shouldn't be able to disagree with it. And when you have Republicans who are breaking from basic Republican tenets, guess what happens? You lose, and you lose badly. And look, Jack Ciattarelli's a friend of mine, but I look back at that election, and if you're asking me to define what the message was, I can't define it. And I think I'm pretty good at this election thing after being the chair since 2014 and being elected since 2019. We have to be able to define ourselves. And we have to lift up people who are defining us as Republicans. The other day, I'm going to talk about this because I watched that hearing, Paul, after I saw your video go viral. You were asking really good questions about illegal immigrants. Oh, by the way, it's in our federal code, just so everyone's aware. They're called illegal aliens. That language has not changed. But we're told what, Paul, when we ask those questions? I always get this one. Nobody's illegal.
They're trying to change language, Senator. You know that.
Well, that's correct. It's Orwellian and it's frightening. It's the modern day Animal Farm. They're just whitewashing the rules. And he was asking great questions and he got shut down by the chair of his committee. Now, one would think that this would go nationally viral. But here's the problem. And I'm sure everyone in this room knows this. If you don't, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The media is not on our side at all. So what do I say? For the last 6 years I've been in the legislature, we need to be our own media. And it isn't being boastful if Paul posts that to every single social media platform. It's informative. And what are we supposed to do? Like it and share it on your social media platforms. Because guess what? And I thought I was special, by the way, in 2019. I was the only Republican senator newly elected in the country in 2019. So I get done and I did an interview with the Atlantic City Press and I did it with another newspaper. And I said to the Senate Republican office, hey, are we getting on Fox News or anything? They said, we have no contacts at Fox. I said, what do you mean we have no contacts at Fox? So again, the media isn't even focusing on our state because they consider us a blue state. So what is our job? Our job is to back each other up When you see Republicans doing good things, promote it. Look, we're going to make mistakes. This is a shocker. We're human beings. We may make a decision that you disagree with. Call us. Don't post it on Facebook. Call us. Don't post it on Instagram. Call us. Don't get in a text message frenzy group bashing one of us. Because I've seen the screenshots, and it makes no sense to me when we're attacking Republicans in a district that could go Democrat like that. Because guess what that means? It means I have 25 to 15 in the Senate. What are your numbers now, Paul?
We only have 20.
23 out of 80, which means the Democrats can, even in those tough districts, break ranks and still get every single bill they need passed, right? That's a problem. But if we start focusing on legislative districts, we start focusing on municipalities, and I'm going to tell you how it really goes down. My biggest secret to winning in Cumberland County wasn't the 14 municipalities. It was the 92 voting districts. I didn't look at a single municipality as a county chair when I started really winning. Because you have to figure we're losing on elections by 400 votes. If I pick up 92 districts, if I pick up 7 votes in each one, I win. If I pick up 10, I win by a comfortable margin. You know how easy it is to pick up 10 votes? Agreed, Ms. Kurtz. I agree with you. It's really easy. You got to knock doors like Jesse Kurtz does in his neighborhood and become known. I don't think you want to just listen to a talking head and everybody had a great meal. And I got to tell you, this is a fantastic room, fantastic drinks. The food looks amazing. I haven't had any yet. But if there's anybody who has any questions, I want to end up because I just don't want to stand up here and talk. I could talk for a week about all of the things that are happening in Trenton, what I've witnessed. But those are some really basic things. You know, talked about the golden rule, Seth. Republicans have to get along with each other. We have to, that's the number one thing, because I see it all of the time, and we slice each other's throats and then wonder why we lose.